Hello everyone, I'm really pleased to present here a playtesting prototype of the game Waning, Crescent, Shattered Cross. It depicts the siege of Malta in the year 1565, where Ottoman forces were attempting to take out the Knights of St. John, who had been harassing their merchant shipping in the Mediterranean. Now, a siege game is a very interesting proposition because sieges, when I think about sieges, I think of long, protracted periods of general inactivity, followed by short, brief punctuations of intense activity. And how do you portray that in an exciting fashion within a war game? Because it's a bit of a kind of a standard that war games that don't have much movement within them are not as absorbing as war games that have a decent movement rate of units. You know, the classic, right? My panzers, one wing of panzers here, the other there, and then we'll cut off the passes in the rear. So, you know, we enjoy sort of moving our units around the board, parrying and riposting in kind of general flurries of activity. But here, you've essentially got a duel where one member is static and the other is kind of circling around, trying to find an opening. Then there's a quick attack, there's a parry, maybe a little riposte. But how do you portray that kind of slow motion duel in an interesting board game? And I think this is what this is looking here. So it's designed by Andy Lokes. I believe it's his second Siege game. I don't know what else he's designed, to be honest. But I understand he designed Toulon, which was a French siege with old Napoleon featured there. But here, quite a different proposition. So you've got the Malta siege, and as I see it, there's two tasks to the game. One is to portray the siege in an exciting and interesting manner, and the other is to really evoke those medieval times in which we're featured. So this is, did I say this is my first time I playtested? Sorry, I've recorded a couple of other intros that went wrong for whatever reason. This is the first time I've ever playtested a game, so I'm really proud to be part of this, and I hope to do the game justice with this video, which is, and the others series I'll be doing featuring it. The point of me doing the videos is to stimulate interest and buzz around the game. What to start with? Well, here is the map. I can pull back a little bit. You can see the size of the map. We got here some playing cards for size comparison. So I can't say much about the components because obviously these are playtest quality components and they may change, be modifications and things within the final thing. But I'll do a quick sort of components look so you get an idea of what the game's about. So here is the map. So obviously it's not the whole of Malta. You have the whole of Malta represented down here on the strategic table. So you've got Medina, which is the capital, the main town. You've got Magara and Melilla bays. You have another bay down here which isn't actually featured in the game. I think it was a possibility the Ottomans who are besieging started here. I can't remember the history, despite having read the Great Siege of Malta background, which will be included in the game. So you've got some historical background here. But anyway, basically, so we have on here it's mainly about Medina. So you have places for the Knights of St. John and the Ottomans to be placed here. You have a wall state of Medina to represent there, and you also have this point where you'd represent forces landing in the bays, wherever they are around here. So this is a strategic map. I think you can, linked with the strategic map is the Christian Knights of St. John Relief Force, and then up over here is the Ottoman camp. So they're sort of part of the strategic map. Then we have the tactical map here, which is a true point-to-point map. As you can see, it's points. So these are obviously major points of movement or disposition linked by lines. So a bit hard to see. It's not hard to see when you look at the map, to be honest. So this one is linked to all of the points around it. And they have different color coding. So basically you have a periphery, then you have, hang on a minute, where's my rule book? Got cut off by alarm on my phone. Okay, so you have the periphery, then you have open areas. You have these blue areas which have a screening prerequisite. Now, these two areas are both periphery and screening prerequisite areas, and I believe the screening is to do with Mount Shibaras, which is here. So I'll get into that later, mainly because I can't remember what that's about at the moment. I haven't actually read the rules. I'm going to plunge in and learn the rules as I'm playing the game, but I have read the historical thing a few days ago. So so you've got fortifications, and you've got these bordering the walls points. So that's periphery and bordering, that's periphery and bordering walls. And then you have another type over here. You have white ones which are urban. So essentially on the map you have Mount Shirabisa with the fortress of St. Elmo, and then you have these areas which will be utilised by the Ottomans as they are besieging that. Then you have this point here, Burgu Bay. You have points all around here, Calcutta Bay. Then you have Burgu town itself. It has fortifications around it. So you have points going all the way out to here. So Ottoman Turkish movement can occur here. Then on this peninsula you have on this peninsula you have Senglia, another town with fortifications around it. You have the heights of Koradin here. So I imagine that would be useful if you put artillery here to bombard this place. And then the rest of these don't have any points. So over here you have boxes for card play. So that's optional return to play cards. St. Elmo's reinforced over water box. Return to play cards. You have the main deck here. I printed mine out on an old, sort of card deck. Because I don't like to look at that. I'm playing solo, and it's my first game. I don't know what anything means, so I've got my deck exposed. Then you have the Ottoman from play and Ottoman optional return to play or something. I can't read that at the moment there. There you've got the Ottoman camp represented. Then over here you have a general casualty box and a permanent casualty box. St. Elmo casualty box and Medina casualty box. And then up here you have Ottoman morale, Ottoman supply and Ottoman honour, Christian morale, Christian supply, Christian honour. You have Christian relief force, imminent track, and then you have the calendar which occurs in weekly turns. So that's the map, that's the playing board. Hang on, there's a few more points I should mention, but first I just wanted to mention, okay, so we had St. Elmo and Medina mentioned in these casualty boxes. We also have on the supply tracks, we have Senglia and St. Elmo. So that's Senglia and St. Elmo have their own supply tracks separately. So this is all going to be kind of relevant to obviously tactical play, like, where do the Turks, the Ottomans besiege first, what do they want to take out first, etc. Also note that you have morale states and honour states. They're both going to be important in the game. And I should also mention you have your compass there. You have these blue bits. I really should have read the rules again recently before I did this thing. But anyway, I'm just trying to get that. So they're around. It's something to do with. I don't know what it's to do with. I'll have to come back about that. But I just want to point out some other points. Vallette's Palisade, Bridge of Boats destroyed, Burgoo Street barricade, another palisade, screening, and then we have a point down here. We have 3 points: Tigny Point, Ravelin, and Gallows Point, which are all going to be featured on specifically on cards. So they're sort of important geographical locations to note. Then what we have is there's a lot to the game. So this is, I'm just trying to give you a bit overview. You have the ranged attack chart. You have the melee chart. Obviously this is obviously pre-production components for play testing. So you've got a melee chart, which is interesting. Worse, 1 to 2, 1 to 5, 3 to 1 or better, and you're rolling on a d10 on these. Then what else do you get? You get the rule book, which is how many pages? 19 pages. Then you also get a playbook, which includes some abbreviations, terminology, dice, rounding, unit types, and notes on Ottoman strategies. Then there's 3 scenarios and 2 examples, one of support and one of crossfire. Then you also get these few sheets about, these are called the process sheets. So it shows you supply consumption, what you do with supply consumption, moving supplies, what you do. So it's a very nice summary of these various processes throughout the game. And you can see there's quite a list of them. Outflanking, stalled attack, barrage, etc. So there's lots of mini processes within the game. So the sense I'm getting is there's a hell of a lot of detail, different things you can decide to do. And then here's the historical notes. There's a lot of that. That was a very interesting read. And then again, this is showing how much is in the game. You have the Medina assault table. So that's a separate one for this on the strategic map. And this isn't necessarily linked to these. These are scaling, success, and supply transfer table. So obviously scaling success is to see how successful scaling walls are. And the supply transfer table is, I believe, to do with transferring supplies from here to St. Elmo. Because St. Elmo was a key point historically, and it held out for a long time with supplies transferred off across the water that way. So you have a table for that. Then you have breaking Medina siege table. So again, that's for this important point there. Medina relief, Christian force. Okay, I think so. Some more tables. Is that? Oh, yes. No, I think that's the main tables involved, except the last sort of table that you could be rolling on is this one, and it's called the final battle. So right at the end game, there's a relief force. So there's a track here, if you remember, that the relief force is imminent. Here the relief force arrives. So I think the sense is that if the Ottomans have not taken Malta by then, there will be a final battle, and there could be an interesting outcome from that. So you're only going to need that table once, but you can see there's a big range of possibilities there. Then we have a short game end of week processes. So as I said, it was weekly turns, end of week processes. So there's a shorter game and a longer game, and then there's a solo scenario. So this is again a helpful sheet of what to do for the end of week processes. You have sequence of play here. So it's basically card play. And then you have discard piles, how to play your discard piles, return to play, St. Elmo reinforced, removed, etc. Then we have these two important notes, morale adjustments, so what Christians do or have done to them, how their morale is adjusted, and same for the Ottomans. And then here we have the honour adjustment, so how honour gets adjusted. Now I don't know the victory conditions yet, so I won't speak to that. I think that's giving you an idea of how much colour and picture is in the game. So it's not on, I mean it's obviously on abstracted elements, but there's a hell of a lot going on. But it all looks quite manageable. It's all nicely arranged. I want to speak about these. Now these are strategy cards. So you have your main card deck there, and by the way, mixed in with those are weekend cards. So there's a variable end to the week. You don't know exactly when it's going to happen. The week being each turn, and then these are only used right at the beginning of the game. Essentially, there's 3 strategies which the Ottoman player can take. One is favoured thrice, one is favoured twice, and one is only favoured once. So you have a random draw of that. And essentially that determines your kind of expected strategy, either determined by higher ups or the position that was decided at the Council of War upon meeting the forces on the island. Now you don't have to follow the strategy. For example, Ottomans attack Medina and blockade Grand Harbour. Ottomans focus on St. Angelo, or Ottomans attack St. Elmo to secure Marmosetto. So it's 3 things: focusing on Medina, St. Angelo, or St. Elmo. If you don't follow that, you lose some honour. I understand it. So there's some penalty, but that's kind of, and that's secret. So the Ottoman has that. Now the last thing I'd like to show now, before I sort of wrap up this brief intro, is just to look at the counters. So you've got all these counters. Obviously, don't speak to the components because we don't look at components as such. They might change, colours and so forth. These are probably more or less basic graphics that you're going to get. Let's have a look at them. You have here knights. Each of these represents 50 knights. Then you have Maltese folks, so the inhabitants defending their own place. You have here the basic St. John, basic sort of, yes, okay, they're men-at-arms or mercenaries, so that basic soldier as such. And then I've missed one out. Here they are down here. Then you have sergeants here. So that's the Christian forces. And then I'm not sure of which one's which at the moment, but the Ottomans have janissaries, layalars, spahis, and levies. Those, I believe, the levies. These are the janissaries. Can't remember these two which are which. And then they also have some artillery. They have 4 cannon and a basilisk there. And then some other markers for marking on the tracks. Then we've got these are the backs of these. These are all to do with fortifications. So trenches, breach repair attempt. And these are important. These are markers for the breach, so it goes from 1 to 8 points up. You also have some wear and tear markers as well. And so these are obviously all to do with fortifications. And then last but not least, here are various markers for card effects. So I can't speak to that at the moment, but we've got things like captured siege tower, relief imminent, Medina wall state. Oh, that may be a marker on the board. Bombardment, hold St. Elmo, St. blah blah, St. Elmo assaulted, etc. Barricades. So that's just a quick overview. You'll get hopefully you'll get a better idea as I play it. I don't know really how to go ahead with this, except if people want to ask me. Sorry, I'm battling Gorilla Grip here, trying to use it as a tripod. People want to ask specific questions, please do, and I'll try and answer them. Before I finish off, let's just have a look at some cards. Viceroy of Messina vacillates. So he was the chap in charge of the relief force. Size of relief force is discovered. Oh, maybe I haven't shuffled these too well yet. Papal Bull. Increased Christian morale. Grand Master shames knights into acts of heroism. Now, one thing I noticed is some of the cards that have events at 8 to 10, it's no effect, so that's interesting. This one, it's actually 4 to 10, there's no effect, so you can play a card for the event and it might well not take effect anyway. But as I understand it, you have quite a few cards in your hand, depending on how quickly you play them. So we'll have to see how it goes. The other thing is that these cards don't have like ops points and reinforcement points marked on them, but as I understand it, each card can also be used for a whole slew of other activities. So you either play them as an event or any other one activity or something like that, but seriously, there's a whole slew of them. And so there's strategic movement, tactical movement, trench building, scaling walls, cavalier building, ranged combat, melee initiation, barrage, breach repair, or attempting to break the siege of Medina. So that's a lot that's going on. So you can see there is going to be, obviously it will depend on what your opponent's doing, but the Christian's going to be parrying and riposting the Ottoman designs, and also trying to shuffle troops from point to point, trying to repair breaches, trying to resupply, trying to maintain their honour, and trying not to lose morale. Let's have a see. I can't wait to get into it. And I hope if anyone is interested, please, I will leave some details of where to get in touch with Legion War Games and the appropriate people.